To a World of Warship Blitz video. This video is the second stats review video for the Perth, where I said I'd be comparing it with something other than a Tier 6 cruiser. And as you can see, I've got the Leander lined up. Let us bring us up the other comparison ships so that you can understand what we are going to be using as the standard for comparison. So the reason that I'm bringing these ships up is that I have a personal feeling after playing the Perth for a good 10 battles with a 90% win rate, I might add, that the Perth sort of represents the Belfast of Tier 6. So it's not exactly the Belfast, so if you're expecting radar out of the ship, then you'll be disappointed. But what I'm going to do is explain why I get that sensation. So I play the Belfast quite a bit. I'm quite used to its strengths and its weaknesses, and the Perth feels fairly similar in a lot of ways. So I've done the comparison of the Perth versus the Leander. So to understand how I think that the Perth is sort of like the Tier 6 equivalent of that Belfast ship, let's do a comparison of the Fiji and the Belfast. So the Leander and the Perth, are very similar. Don't know why it's taking all that time to switch between them. Similar hit points. I mean, to be fair, the Perth doesn't have single fire torpedoes. It has slightly slower traverse, and better concealment, slightly better concealment, a touch better. That's it. So that's the difference between the Perth and the Leander, and the Perth has HE. The Fiji and the Belfast are a little bit more different, right? So probably the first thing you'll notice is that they have very similar armor profiles, apart from the fact that when we look at the Belfast, it has slightly better torpedo reduction. Not that that's ever much of an issue with the Belfast, to be fair. And it has a slightly worse turning capacity. The Belfast, however, compared with the Fiji's 24,800, nearly 25,000 hit points, the Belfast has a clear 5,000 hit point advantage at 29,000. And the reason for that is that the Belfast is built upon the Edinburgh hull. So, and you'll see that all the armour profiles are pretty similar for the Belfast, except it has a slightly reduced torpedo reduction, or slightly increased torpedo reduction. I think that's because of the camo. So yeah, and the Edinburgh has slightly better traverse because the historical camo provides some traverse benefits, which the Belfast historical camo doesn't. Not that that's ever a problem. Where the Belfast and the Fiji are very similar is here in the guns. Effectively, they have the same guns. Now, the Belfast does have a slightly increased range by 11.4 rather than 11.07, but there's not much in it. But the damage, the reload, the configuration, the layout is all the same, except the Belfast has one huge advantage, and that is a 4% fire chance with a HE damage of 460, which is well off the AP damage, but still. These guns are fairly accurate, and you can pump out enough shells that you can generally get enough fires started to make up the difference. This is an excellent ship for long range, basically, or reasonably long range, medium to long range HE spamming, and it has the almost, but not quite, British cruiser agility to keep you out of trouble. Obviously, the other benefit that the Belfast has, that most people would think of as the main advantage, is that it has the sonar and the radar. So I'm going to tell you out of the three things that it has there, because the Fiji has a defensive AA. Yeah, that's nice. You got something to press when planes come over. It only has 2 smoke generators. So the Fiji, let's go back there, only has the 2 smoke generators, and they are smoke generator 1. So set smoke screen in 9 seconds, active for 24 seconds, cooldown 105. The Belfast has the smoke generator 2, which provides, and it has 3 of them. So that's a massive advantage. Set smoke screen for 11 seconds, active for 32 seconds, cooldown of 90 seconds, and then if you add something like a Mistweaver on top of it, you can really spend a lot of the battle, or the heat of the battle, or the early part of the battle, the most dangerous part of the battle, shrouded in smoke and shooting your heart out. So that makes a significant difference between this and the Fiji. The sonar is nice to have, but I don't use it that often because with the HE and the relatively accurate AP and the fact that this thing can smoke up at a moment's notice, generally you don't get much into knife fights, whereas the Fiji, I find I get into more knife fights. And the other reason I get into more knife fights with the Fiji is that the Belfast is very much a priority target. So if you put yourself out there with the Fiji, you might get away with it. If you put yourself out there out the front with the Belfast, you are going to get into trouble. The radar is also something that's useful to have, but I use rarely. When a destroyer smokes up and there are other ships around that can take advantage of it, I pop the radar so everybody can have a feast on the destroyer who thinks he's gone into safety. Or if the destroyer's on just about dead and smokes up, then to put those last shots on accurately, I'll pop that radar. But generally in battles, a lot of battles I never use the sonar, a lot of battles I never use the radar, but a lot of battles I use all three smoke generators. So essentially what makes this ship effective, apart from the three smoke generators, which is really powerful, is the fact that it has that HE, so it can manage a reasonably long range damage profile against large ships. So it's a lot more useful in battle against large ships where the Fiji may struggle. The Fiji does well against French battleships, but yeah, good luck, against American battleships in the Fiji. It can be a very, very, very long grind. And I think that's where I come back to compare the Perth to the Leander, because the Leander gets the two smoke charges. The Perth, now these are fuel smoke, right? So if you're not used to them, then you're going to feel really cheated because these do not last long. The total smoke time is 10 seconds. But once you get used to them, and if you use the British destroyers, you'll be used to how these work. These actually are every bit as effective as the other smoke, because what they do is they move with you. So this normally what you do is you pop smoke to either hold a position, which in the Fiji is not really very effective. In the Belfast it can be good to hold a position and fire from effectively cover in the open ocean. The other reason that you use it, and that's the most common use for the Belfast, is basically to set up a firing position against dangerous enemy ships. For the Fiji, it's most often used to get out of trouble. For the Perth, generally this is a get out of trouble. It can be used aggressively, like if you're in a close knife fight with a destroyer, you pop the fuel smoke, you pop the sonar. If he smokes up, he's still spotted, and basically you've got the advantage of firing from cover. He'll have the advantage of agility, of course, but yeah, your torpedoes can take a lot of that agility away if you know how to use them. So, but the rest of the battle, and what I've noticed is that this is a small ship, and firing at long range, it doesn't have the smoke of the Belfast, but it doesn't have the reputation that invites immediate counter battery fire, not yet anyway. And this ship is very effective in almost the same role as the Belfast, which is long range HE, until you need to deal with something close range like a destroyer or whatever, and basically you can rip those up. So from my perspective, the play style of this is slightly different, but in a lot of ways very reminiscent of the Belfast. To say that is the Tier 6 Belfast is probably overstating it, but it is very similar in effectiveness and play style. Obviously, Tier 6 ships haven't got the same capacity as the Tier 7 ships, so the things that you lose between the Belfast and this ship is actually not that bad. So in fact, yeah, it is a new favorite ship of mine. I've spent a lot of time in Respawn with this ship. I've had a few random battles. I'm getting a very good win rate. 10 battles so far, 90% win rate. And yeah, it's knocking down a lot of bad guys. I think in Respawn my record is 6 ships taken down. So this, yeah, this is a great little thing to play, and thoroughly recommended from my perspective anyway. I mean, it is only available through the Blitz Pass, so I mean, once it's gone, I think it's gone, and I suspect that I'll be very pleased for many months to come that I made the investment. So my recommendation is that if you like British light cruisers, or you're then this is definitely something worth getting. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. It felt a little bit like an advertisement, but then again, if I like something, I'll say that I like it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.